Hey guys, I'm Ben with Kame Trick, your internet drift coach, whether it's in real cars or simulators. Today we're going to be replacing a broken main cable on my Fanatec Club Sport wheelbase. So we've got our replacement part here and it's going in. Here's how you do it. We're going to use a parts tray with some magnets to help us out. And we're going to use 3 Allen keys. A 2mm, a 2.5mm, and a 3mm. First up, we're going to turn our wheelbase around. There are 4 screws that we're going to remove. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Next, we'll take our 2.5 and holding the wheelbase, we're going to break these loose. Now we're going to turn the wheelbase and catch them. So here's one. Turn our wheelbase back over. We'll deposit these into our parts tray. We'll stabilize the base, come in at the top. They're short screws. Now we'll tilt our base back over this way. We'll pull this off. Now, one important note, be careful pulling it off gently because there is an attached wire right here. We're going to turn this to where you all can see it. Look at the board and take notes. On one side, you've got a top wire that's going to go out here. You've got another wire that goes to a K-span here. I'm going to use pliers to remove these. So, now our case is free. Like so. Now we're going to come to the other side, and we have 3 wires to deal with. One is right here. We've got our main power wire. And then we've got another wire. Now this one is held in by a bracket. We're going to do it last. So first and foremost, I'm going to use my pliers to pull this guy out. You have to depress a clip and then pull. So you can see here you have to depress that little clip. Next up, we've got our top wire here. I'm going to try to get this one with my thumbs now that I have a bit more room. Or I'll just have to pull it by the cables. You really don't want to do that if you can avoid it. This cable right here is a little tricky. This guy right here is actually a clip and you have to pull it up. So I'm going to use a pick to lift it up. See, we can grab this and simply pull it out. And as you'll see, this has no connector. It's just a press fit right there, which is pretty wild. So you got to be gentle with that. Zooming out a little bit, there's now 2 Allen keys that we have to take off, and they're right here and right here. This is going to be our 2.5mm. We're going to loosen both. We're going to hold the card at the top and unwind this one. You'll see it's long. It also has a little washer on here. Now, a few things may fall off when you move the card back. Do note it's still connected in a few spots. Mainly, you've got your main wire right here. This is the wire that we need to replace. That is the end that's going to have this on it. Also, there's these little plastic tubes. These are loose. They can just fall out. This one especially, you'll see it's got this main cable tied to it. So you'll have to make sure when you're reassembling to get that seated all the way. And then the board actually screws into these bottom 2. So these screws end up going through there into this big metal X bracket. I'm going to pull this down so you can see it better. So if you come down and around, you can actually kind of unwind this. And this right here is our main cable. It actually goes all the way through out to the front, and there is some hot glue on here. I've tried to work with this hot glue in a couple different instances, and trying to remove it cold is not the answer. Don't get an X-Acto and try to scrape it off. You want to get a hairdryer or a heat gun and heat this. We're going to go out to the garage and do that work. We'll come out to the garage, see the real drift car sitting there. This is an engine swap that I did myself in my garage with nothing but hand tools. And ooh, look at the suspension. Very basic, except for this beautiful powered by Max arms. Sorry, got distracted. Anyway, this is going to be maybe the hardest step for those of y'all who are bald. You're going to need a heat gun, or in my case, a very simple hair dryer. But we're going to heat this up until it gets loose and gummy. Then we're going to use plastic scraping tools to pull all of this off. We were basically looking for a change in color. And now, as you can see, it comes right up. They do apply this stuff pretty liberally, so it may take 2 goes to get as much of it off as you want. Main thing is just to make sure that you get all the sides, the top, and especially where it connects the top piece to the bottom piece as best as you can. And if you've got a little bit of extra time, you can even just use a piece by itself to try to get down in there. It does tend to stick to itself, so doing it with heat this way tends to make it glob together like this, which is great because you can get more of it off. I'm going to give the board a second to cool down, and now I'm ready to give this a firm tug. I'm just going to pull it by the wires and not worry about it because we're replacing this anyway. And there you go. So we've got our board loose. You might want to reheat and go in and clear off the inside of this if it's not still kind of gummy, because there will definitely be more gunk to get off. That'll make it easier to connect your new part. All right, we're in good shape there. We're going to clean off our tools and head back inside. We now have our board loose, so we're going to set this aside somewhere it won't get hurt. And now we're going to come around to the front and get this out. So to do that, there are 5 Allen keys around the circumference of this. What I like to do is break everything loose first. So we're going to use our 3mm on here. And more than likely, we may have to steer this over to one extreme end. We're going to break everything loose. I'm going to use my picks. There is a little metal disc. It's quite small, rather thin, that goes on those. Now I'll use my pliers and see if I can't just pull this out. Okay, here we go. Of course, this won't just come right out. You'll see on the back, this connector is wider than the hole. So what you have to do is fold it in on itself and then pull it through. Now it should come straight out. And there is our old piece, complete with a pin stuck inside of there. So, sayonara to you. And here's our replacement part. This is product code SPCSWV 2.5MC. I had to go through Fanatec support to buy this. I don't know if you can get one off the internet, but I hope this helps somebody with something. Okay, so now we're just doing the reverse of the removal. We're going to fold this guy over so that he fits through this hole down in here. Push him on through. It'll come out the back, like so. We'll then push this all the way back so that it's seated fully. You will want to make sure that you put this in the correct orientation, otherwise you'll have broken pins again instantly. So you'll see there's a channel along the top of the wheel. That's what the quick release goes onto. And if we pop this out so you can see a little bit more clearly, you'll see there's kind of a V shape right here. That V shape goes opposite this. So if this is at 12 o'clock, this little V is at 6. So we're going to orient that just so. Fortunately, the holes mean that you can't really do this wrong. Next, we will take our little metal plate. Gonna put at least one of these through. and just try to get it to bite. So you can push it down most of the way. Grab your tool. Assuming you get it to thread in, you're basically good. You can go ahead, put in the others. I get all of them to start threading before I tighten anything down at all. You may also need to take a wire brush, clear out the old Loctite. Here's a case where there's some buildup of Loctite, so I'm just going to scrape this off with a pick. Now that we've got all these in, we're just going to get them snug, because assuming that this works, I'm going to be straight into driving. We're going to make sure that our clear plastic cover is pushed up all the way, because this just slides out. So we're going to make sure that it's seated so that we don't have any issues with reassembly. And now we are ready to reinstall the board. I took a minute to wash my hands and dry them well, because this part of the wheel that's all the mechanics has some grease and things. I don't really want to get that on the board. Now, we know from looking at the gunk on the old one that the area where you can see these little connectors is going to be the bottom side for this. So we're going to go ahead, get it lined up and plugged in. I'm not using the best practice here, but I'm going to gently use some pressure to make sure that this is nicely plugged in. Being careful not to grab the contacts down here, but again, that's probably not best practice. Now, it is recommended that you reapply hot glue here. I'm very comfortable taking this apart if I need to, so I'm going to send it without any hot glue for the time being. Again, I want to make sure it works before I go ahead and secure everything. Next up, we're going to put the board back on. We know that these USB connectors go down onto the bottom, so we're going to flip her around like this. We need to reinstall all of these plastic pieces that fell out. Again, they're going to go into these holes here, and they're going to fall out a few times probably while I try to reinstall this. So something I like to do is use all of this extra maneuverability and get this guy plugged back in. This is kind of a pain and may not be the best angle, but you get the idea. I'm going to have this pulled up. I think that's going to be enough. Push that locking pin in. If it's not, I'll have to redo that. So when we go to move this up, it gets a little bit more complicated now because this is plugged in. We're going to have to take this spacer and push it in and then kind of hold it in place, because tension on this little wire, which we've got to be gentle with, will cause it to want to pull out. Try to get this screw to bite. It did bite, so that's going to make our lives a lot easier. We're going to put it in not until it's tight, but enough that nothing should come flying apart. Push our other side in, get it lined up, sink this screw. I'm not going to tighten this too much because it's just the board. But there we go. Now we're ready to plug everything else back in. Our multicolored wire here goes in the top. Our big power wire goes onto these two guys right here. It's got a clip in, so it goes in very definitively. Get that clip in, spin around to the other side. The internal fan that doesn't come off on the back of the case goes in the bottom of these two. They're not even the same size, so you can't really mess it up. So now we'll go ahead, try not to let this pull out of this little clip here. We'll get this in position. We'll reclip it. Yeah, this cover goes over top, so you may have to pull up slightly on the bottom to get it to slide into place. Once you've got it, we can go ahead and flip this up onto its end. And Now we're ready to drop in our screws. Because we're keeping it set up on the top, we need to be a little careful not to let it tip over, but we're basically just going to sink these screws into their holes, like so. Then we're going to use our 2mm Allen key on our lower screws. We'll use our 2.5 Allen key for the top ones. You'll be able to feel the change in resistance when they bite and start to thread in. And once everything is threading, you can basically just go through and tighten them down. Now that you've replaced your wheelbase connector, check out this video to see how to replace the corresponding male connector that's going to be in your quick release. And otherwise, I invite you guys to check out my Discord. It's linked in the video description and basically all over my channel, or hit me up on social. I'm happy to help new folks get into sim drifting and sim racing toge content as well. And we also have a wonderful community that is always growing, full of good drivers and good-natured folks who love to have a good time. Hope this helped you out.